Hello and welcome to Faith and Honest Conversation. I'm Thomas. This is James, and we met when we were training to be counsellors. And yeah, we're here just to talk honestly about our own experience and about of faith and spirituality, and not in a way that this is what you should experience, but hopefully in a way where you feel like you can have your own experience, and that's okay. James, we finished last time, and the last couple of times we've been kind of thinking about the immediacy of God and this experience of spirituality and faith and God being about what's happening between us and in us in this moment, which I felt really has been nourishing and valuable.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? It's very strong. It's very there's like an immediacy and a now about it, and it's really hard to put into words, isn't it? But yes, it's something very connected about it.
Connected is a real key word, I think, that we've picked up on, and I guess I'm thinking how I often think, spirituality is over there. Like, or maybe if I just grasp something enough, or if I just do something enough, or I don't know, and I'm at this holy place or something, doing something like. Whereas this feels very grounding into the alreadiness of it and the closeness of it.
Yeah, that we're not having to do anything special, really, to engage or to experience God, or to experience ourselves or each other. That it is here, it is now, and it's not a as you say, that there's no ritual we have to complete. There's no sort of like religion that we have to sort of like appease, or liturgy we need to say, song we need to sing, prayer we need to say. We can just become part of it. It's like as simple as breathing, isn't it?
Like it's as there as breathing.
Yes, yeah. It's like just as almost an opening your awareness to it, and you're like, oh right, it's been there the whole time. God's still here and has been, and it's just it's very good. I have something that I noticed with it. I mentioned before that I write morning pages, and I've been quite committed to that, just particularly this last week, where I get up a bit earlier, write 3 pages of absolute nonsense or waffle or whatever, and it is a bit of a spiritual practice. There is an element of meditation to it, and engaging with the inner creator and the great creator. That's how the lady who wrote the book kind of forms it, or gives it as a framework. And in it, I've written fairly recently about that. That each moment is glorious and beautiful and wonderful, and we experience and revel and enjoy each moment. That's what we can do as people, and that's what spirituality allows us to do, because it calls us to the here and now, the present, the immediate moment, not before, not future, right now, because it's the only thing we've got any kind of impact on. The only thing that we can know is the now. It's amazing, like kind of learning that kind of stuff that I suppose I knew already, but knew at a certain level and experienced it at a certain level, and then re-experiencing it at a deeper level, and then re-experiencing it again now as a like kind of post-Christian, I don't know, but yeah, in a different way, but it's still being the same immediacy, the same now, that knowing the moment.
and reveling, that really stuck with me, reveling in the moment,
Mm,
in each moment, and each moment being glorious and wonderful.
yeah, yeah.
It reminds me of I've been listening to a podcast called Turning to the Mystics,
Okay, yeah.
which is a center for contemplation and action.
Mm,
I don't know, Richard Raw set up this organization, and I forget what they're called, CCEF, I think.
yeah.
It's whatever that stands for. And a guy called James Finley kind of leads us in the podcast through his sort of meditations on different mystics.
Mm,
But something he has kept saying is that the like the disciplines of prayer, or the disciplines, or the spiritual disciplines, I guess, or practices that the mystics did, were about recalibrating our sensitivity
mm,
to to the moment, I guess, and to where God is giving himself in this moment,
mm.
giving himself out in this moment. He has lovely phrases that just roll
Yeah.
off his tongue as if he's written them and
Wow.
said them many times, and it's like, yeah, but it's like a shift in perception almost, or a shift in
Yes, yeah.
becoming sensitive to now.
Yeah, yeah. And because of that, to God in now. That sounds amazing. I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's yeah, and I think it's been fascinating for me listening to them, because mysticism is something I've always historically I kind of erred away from. Was perhaps a bit too Catholic, or a bit too emotional, maybe, is in there as well. But it's been really fascinating seeing their or encountering this way of being, I guess, with faith and with spirituality, and a real a real sense of God in the moment, God in the here and now, of us being in God and God in us. That I've not experienced in a theology before, let's say.
Yeah, it is funny, isn't it? I don't think I'd ever encountered it in big church before, or in like any of the sort of services or house groups or anything like that I was engaged with, although there were hints at it here and there. And you realized, oh, there are people who've experienced this, who kind of have like maybe peeked around the corner at it, except for one person who or maybe a couple of people who I used to pray with in the morning. So when I first sort of encountered God, and I really threw myself in like the whole hog into Christianity and into the church that I was with. There were a few of us who would meet in the mornings to pray, like it was ridiculously early, something like 6 o'clock in the morning or something like abhorrent. We would get up.
That's
really,
not a time
really,
to be spiritual. It's not in that now.
Like this real ascetic kind of like, if it doesn't hurt, it's not properly true.
That's it. That's
it. But that's setting that aside, that we would meet together in this kind of little tiny house that was attached to the church, and pray in the mornings for like half an hour or something. It was and just kind of connect. And there was this real sense of connection with God, this real sense of immediacy, and what one of my friends really pointed out, there's this intimacy to it. It's real depth of intimacy, and that. But that's what we as people crave and we need, because it's kind of like that. It's sort of like the inverse. I don't think they talked about it at the time, but it's sort of it's kind of coming to me now that it's sort of the inverse of what's happened to us. You know, we're born and we kind of separate. Probably talked about this before, which is why it's coming back to me. And that, but this is like a reconnection, like coming back, you know, and reattaching and redependence on God and redependence on that minute. That all feels quite flighty and airy-fairy, but the point of it is that it's the intimate moment of it. It's sort of real connection of one spirit to another, or the same spirit coming back together. And I guess the reason I say the same spirit is because for me, I think it is the same spirit. Like the spirit that's in us is God's spirit, and when we reconnect, it's us coming home. You know, there's this sense of coming home to God and God coming home to us. You know, can't remember where I was going with that. Oh yeah, so the same friend who I mentioned, who talks about intimacy a lot, he introduced me to Brother Lawrence, who I've mentioned probably quite a few times now, because at the time I was like, this is amazing. There's somebody who's written about it, and basically he is one of those mystics whose kind of whole experience was about being connected to God all the time, being in like a fit or a state of ecstasy and joy and knowledge that God was real, he was real, and that they were right there, that God's right there for him all the time, and you can just experience God. You don't have to ever stop, because, you know, we can be reconnected always. And that's what we sort of talked about a few weeks ago. Well, now quite a few weeks ago, about like the disconnecting, you know, and going back to being disconnected. I only remember that because we just listened to it, but not like
trying to provide some sort of continuity here.
Yeah, I totally did just remember that. Yeah. So yeah, like Brother Lawrence, I suppose, is a mystic and really interesting guy. He was a monk and lived in France, Benedictine monk, I think. And there's not much of anything that he wrote that's left. I think there were a few letters that he wrote to, I want to say, some duke who came to visit him a lot, because this duke was like fascinated by his way of life and his joy and verve and sort of in spite of this like monastic lifestyle, which is quite again is it ascetic? Did I say that right before? Yeah, where you don't have anything. So very austere. And he talks about, you know, he would have to work in the kitchens a lot, like that was part of their daily jobs, and peeling potatoes, and he hated peeling potatoes, and he hated washing dishes. But whenever he was doing it, he just prayed, and I think that's how he ended up discovering that he could be connected to God all the time, because he could just pray in his head, and he didn't need to let anybody else know that he was praying, but he was having this real connection with God all the time. And then having to kind of rein in his joy, because it would offend so many other monks because he's so happy. And then having to sort of like be more considered about it. But yeah, anyway, that's me going off on
the no, and it's I think there's something that I feel like we're kind of touching on is the like the place that spiritual practices come into this, like because you mentioned it with the journaling as a spiritual practice.
Yes,
reconnecting the inner and the greater creator.
Yeah.
And obviously monasticism is just a life full of spiritual practices of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and so stripped away of anything else, I guess, in a
Mm.
sense that it's in all and I think in order that you live in this relationship with God, like you live in this, although
Yeah, I guess that's the purpose of
like
it,
the
and we just
purpose
see
is
it
strip it, yeah,
like, very infrequently.
yeah. And I'm thinking, I guess I'm trying to I remember what we talking about church as well, like,
Mm.
and I remember hearing on a podcast this idea. So lots of things going on in my head, but I'll try and actually talk about them now. So the idea from the podcast was that it was from, I can't remember the names of anything now, but somebody who's done attachment theory, but commenting or reflecting on experiences at church, and how a lot of our language, in particular of our songs, is actually reflective of a insecure sort of attachment. So almost like pleading with God that he will come.
Yes, yeah,
That he's not here already is the
right,
like
yeah,
we can't trust him to be here.
yes. So this sense of like, oh, if we do enough, then if we're good enough, then
Yeah.
God will be here with us.
Yeah.
You know, that if we're clean enough, that I
Yeah.
suppose it's all connected to
It's all
that as well. Yeah.
yeah, and the spiritual practices, how there can be
Mhm.
this, are they a way of, how James Finley puts it, like recalibrating our hearts to become sensitive to the God who is already there?
Mm.
Or are they a way in order for us to experience God, because then God will come to us?
Yeah, because we're doing the right things. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Or come, or yeah, and it's not, it may not be, it may just be like, oh, we've got to come in the right way, as if we're
Yes.
coming in the right way to our parents, as if we've got to
Yeah,
be a bit like
yeah.
pleading or a bit weak or a bit like all dressed up for, you know, like different parents will have
Yeah.
different sort of things that lets us get a bit closer to them, or and how how this spiritual practices can be really beneficial when they are about tuning in to what's already there, to the immediacy, rather than, oh, God's over there and I've got to try and get his attention or get him to come over here, or and it's a very I think that's quite a significant shift in mindset in how we approach our spirituality. And what's also coming to me then, I'm sorry, I'm rambling loads here, but what's also coming into me is this idea of our own God image is kind of the phrasing there, and how, so I'm linking that with attachment, that you know, why is it that I felt that God was cold or unfeeling or a bit critical, or I had to perform to get his attention, or he wasn't quite there, or you know, or that I had to be super theological or thinky in order to get his attention or something. Like, how much of that is impacted by my own relationships with dad, especially, I guess, or how much have I projected from what I felt in my relationships, formative relationships, have I project onto God? And I think that could be quite a helpful thing to notice, how much similarity there can be, and that maybe that isn't how the world is. Yeah, I don't know. There was a lot of rumblings there, James.
No, totally followed you, and it's interesting because again, when we were doing the counselling course, and I don't know if it might have been even before we were doing the masters together. I think we looked a little bit about attachment theory and God, and how they either differ or they're similar, and that for some people, like, they equate their parental relationships or primary caregiver relationship to that of their own relationship with God, and others, because that maybe that relationship was so broken or so harmful, that they see God in the inverse of that, if that makes sense, in all of the negative space of that. So, for example, if it's an abusive relationship that a person's experienced with a caregiver or a parent, then God will be the complete opposite. And so sometimes you get people who are like completely hit that intimacy vibe straight away, but it's come from like a real negative, dark place.
Yeah.
I mean, this was all like lots of theory and stuff that we read, and I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense. I can do that. But I haven't necessarily seen that with people who I know who've been through that type of of relationship.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's I think for me it's about like noticing those things as they or being curious or wondering about those things as they crop up, like you know, if I'm in a what I call prayer, and I'm feeling, oh, you know, God's far away, then like it's like, what's going on there? Why does God feel far away? Why is that? And usually it's about, you know, it's about me. It's about me feeling in a similar sort of certain emotions or something. And so part of that process is tuning into what's going on in me, and that lets me then tune into, okay, what is going on, or what's going on, and can I tune into how God, who is present.
And sort of like by noticing it, it gives you almost the permission, I suppose, to then go, oh, well, it doesn't have to stay like that, or hang on, let's look at it a little bit closer and allow it to go, or allow it to not be there. I suppose boundary of the prayer, or the flavor or cadence of the prayer. I don't know what the right word is, but yeah, I follow you.
Yeah, and there's something, I think, when I'm not feeling great for whatever, or when I'm feeling inadequate in some way, which usually happens at some point in the day, like it's, I think my temptation is I want to go away from myself. Like I want God to rescue me from this.
Yes, yeah.
And it's quite different to have, like, to stay with, and actually not go away, but actually,
but you know, I've got to experience that. Yeah. And allow yourself to experience.
Yeah, experience compassion or acceptance for that experience, and then it's not about the God who is out there who I need to be more adequate for to get him to save me or whatever. You know, it's about the God who is who loves me as I am, where I am, and is there at the moment.
Yeah. Who puts his arm around you, and who is compassionate towards you, and doesn't want you to be any different or need you to be different. Is with you in the moment. It's fascinating. Just that's a really good way of framing it, because I think maybe something that does I suppose, yeah, I guess like prevent us, and because I can relate very strongly to what you're saying with the whole sense of feeling inadequate in a moment, and then that you wanting to separate from yourself, the whole sense of like embarrassment or guilt or shame, just making you want to be as far away as possible from that feeling, let alone all of the things that have caused that feeling, and that sort of like, oh, why would the world swallow me? That type of stuff. That, you know, can, I suppose, so embody how we live life day to day, that no wonder we find it so difficult to connect. So no wonder I'm not like permanently in this state of like, oh no, God loves me, it's fine. And I know God loves me because I can feel God loves me. It's all right.
Yeah. Or the ways we do connect are in order to escape ourselves.
Yes.
It's like I connect.
It's like superficially or on the fringes, or like connection in a way that you can control or segregate. Sorry, I've totally cut you off. Carry on.
No, that's fine. I was just trying to work out where I was going, but I think I've been thinking this with counselling, like there's a temptation to get lost in the other person, or a temptation to like really feel how the other person is, and it's like I'm all in the other person, and that seems really valued, and like something I perhaps, you know, nobody's gonna have a go at me for that.
No,
not many.
It's not wrong, but there are
yes. Well, yeah, and also there feels something admirable about it, you know, like you're helping another, your focus is on the other, but how much is that is, you know, how that can twist into I need you to get better because I'm feeling pretty rubbish here, so I need you to get better. Or like I need to
over empathizing, or sympathizing almost with them.
I mean it goes into that, and or it could be like wanting to help people, or wanting to make people feel, I guess it happens all the time in our lives, try and make people feel better, or or we switch it and we get really annoyed at other people, and it just, you know, everybody else is the problem. But it's how we connect with people in a way to escape ourselves is and how empty that connection is, really. Like it's not real connection, it's lost me in it.
I'm with you. There's like a that's really interesting. So it's sort of like, because you're so connected that your own you sort of like forgotten yourself and forgotten God in you, because you're so focused on them and their self. Is that right?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. My experience of this is quite forgetting. It's almost I can ignore myself for now.
Oh, okay.
I can
like
ignore
distracted.
Like those feelings, I can be far from.
You're sort of almost shutting yourself away in order to experience this, in order to experience this other person.
And hoping that somehow that experience will make me feel better, I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
When it's never going to, because I'm not there, you know. It's and I think that comes up in a lot of ways. We relate with each other, and comes up in a lot of ways that I've perhaps tried to relate to God, or try to imagine a relationship with God where I guess almost hoping that God would like just make everything better. Or, I guess there's a sense of cleansing, but in a sense, a cleansing where you end up not existing.
Yeah.
Like it washes me away rather
Yeah.
than and yeah, how it feels like what at least I've been trying to get at this session is perhaps a more mystical approach is that that of becoming, of connecting first with ourselves and then connecting with the God who is already in us, already there.
Yeah. So sort of like taking a real step inwards rather than having an outward expression necessarily.
Yeah.
But whatever encourages that inward introspective, I'm meeting me here, that like I'm here as well, and actually sometimes I really don't like me very much, but I am going to sit with me. And then you go, oh, okay, it's because I know what I'm like. That type of
and I guess it's a shift from the God who saves me in a sense of making me better, or healing, or however you put it, versus the sense of kind of participating in the God who sits with me and sees me and accepts me as I am. So there feels that doesn't feel like a preliminary to prayer where I connect with God. It feels like a first step in being with God.
Yeah.
Because God is sitting with me.
It's like a stillness, isn't it? It's more like a being with, a sort of resting with, or sitting with, rather than praying. Like it's not necessarily conversing, but communing.
Yeah, I like that.
So hot.
I'm also aware of time, James.
Yeah, we're not far off, are we?
Yeah. I feel like I've spoken loads, James, in this.
No, it's good. It's been fantastic. It's been really good stuff, Tom. I think it's very hard to get the right words for all of this stuff, and I probably say this again every time we talk. Just like we're wrestling with very nebulous ideas, and it's not nebulous ideas. It's wrong. But again, the words fall down. Like things that there is vague language for, lots of metaphor for, and loads of sort of different kind of imagery and things that we can draw upon, but none of it is exactly right. You're like, I kind of get it, and you kind of get glimpses here and there, and there's some stuff that you said that I was like, yes, no, I totally get what you're saying, and other stuff I was like, yeah, I think I follow, but maybe it's this, or it could be that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Very challenging. Very challenging. But it's been good. It's been really, really good.
And it's trying to articulate something that's quite intimate.
Yeah.
I guess. And in that sense will be quite personal.
Yeah.
And so how I experience it, but also how I conceptualize it, is probably quite different to you, or at least you at this point in time.
Yes, the me now, the now me, and it's also there's a sense of vulnerability to it as well, like this sort of like I'm actually showing you this deeply soft part of myself where actually sometimes I'm not very comfortable. I'm showing it to somebody else, and I'm hoping that they're not going to judge as much as I've judged it. It's quite something, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's something about the awkwardness of it, like maybe that's just how it is. Like the whole experience of prayer or spiritual disciplines or practices, or trying to connect is an awkward process.
Yeah.
Like we can search for those words that make it quite pure or pristine, but actually, 90% of the time, for 90% of people, or at least 99% of my time, is really awkward. Like, and it's less than 1% that I get the pure, pristine, calm, still moments that. So I guess maybe it reflects a bit of our experience as well.
Yeah, and that makes sense because we are there in that moment, and we are like that. It's part of who we are to be, to feel awkwardness and to feel. I suppose it's a fear to an extent, isn't it, of the intimacy and of the exposure and the vulnerability that's in those moments. So and as a result, it can look a little bit messy.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, James.
Good. Really good. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for sharing. Really nice.
Well, thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, the key thing here is, I think for me, is that it makes it okay whatever awkward spiritual experiences you're having. I think I think that's why we do it, isn't it, James?
Yeah, exactly. We're giving ourselves permission as well as each other and whoever's listening. It's all right. It's going to be okay. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for now, and take care.
Yes. Goodbye.